Hello, and welcome to a webinar on using the New York State Alternate Assessment in the development of student learning objectives. During the 2012-13 school year, leaders and teachers of districts and BOCES across the state worked to set ambitious and rigorous academic targets for student performance in the form of student learning objectives, or SLOs. These SLOs were used not only to inform instructional decisions, but to improve practice as well. The development of student learning objectives is an evolutionary process, and the department recognizes that there is much to be learned from the first full year of implementation across New York. This webinar is meant to build upon the experiences and reflections gained from the 2012-13 school year and provide you with additional frames of reference as you work to enhance the implementation of SLOs in the 2013-14 school year, specifically when incorporating the redesigned New York State Alternate Assessment. In this webinar, you'll examine the use of the NYSA assessment in the development of SLOs, explore a target setting model that can be used in conjunction with the 2013-14 NYSA, and review sample components of an SLO using the NYSA. According to the rules and regulations in New York State, any teacher with students taking the NYSA must set at least 2 SLOs using the NYSA portfolio assessment as evidence, 1 SLO representing ELA, and 1 SLO representing math. For further guidance as to the rules and regulations surrounding the development of SLOs, please see the SLO guidance document posted on Engage New York. As part of the department's work to ensure that all assessments measure the New York State P-12 Common Core Learning Standards, the NYSA has been redesigned. The overall structure of the NYSA remains consistent with past practice in that it's a datafolio style assessment that includes evidence of student performance and is designed to assess students with severe cognitive disabilities. This webinar will include references to some of the newly configured aspects of the assessment, but for more detailed information regarding the changes, please visit the 2013-14 NYSA Administration Manual found on the department website. These questions should be considered recursively throughout the development of an SLO. What do you teach? To whom? What do those particular students need? And how will you know that they've got it? This leads you to examine standards, course rosters, data, and assessments. The development of SLOs encourages educators to focus and align instruction with district, BOCES, and/or school priorities, goals, and academic improvement plans. Setting long-term goals allows educators to plan backward from a vision of student success. Research indicates that setting rigorous and ambitious learning goals, combined with the purposeful use of data through both formal and informal assessments, leads to higher academic performance by students. For the remainder of this webinar, we're going to explore these questions through a sample SLO that uses the NYSA as the summative measure of student performance. Each SLO must identify all students who are assigned to a particular course. Individual students must be identified in addition to any other summary data included for context. In this case, the teacher's assignment is a 611 class made up of students who are severely cognitively impaired and working at a 4th and 5th grade level. All 6 students are NYSA eligible and will be taking the grade appropriate assessment based on their chronological age and date of birth. As noted, this SLO represents students' performance on the ELA portion, and a separate SLO would be set representing students' performance on the math portion of the NYSA. In many cases, districts have chosen to reference an accompanying roster rather than including individual student information on the SLO template itself. Either method is acceptable as long as all students enrolled in the course are identified and included in the SLO. Common branch and/or self-contained teachers are required to set 1 SLO in ELA and 1 SLO in math. In this example, ELA is represented, but it's important to note that the teacher would also have an accompanying SLO in math. SLOs are meant to align with Common Core, state, and/or national standards where applicable. Teachers using the NYSA assessment with students can find the ELA NYSA frameworks for each grade level in the Appendix F of the Administration Manual located on the website seen here. It's important to remember that within the NYSA assessment, not every standard is assessed every year. Additionally, because this teacher has students who will be assessed at 2 different grade levels, it's necessary to identify the 2 sets of standards that will be assessed within this SLO. Committees of teachers who served as content experts and special educators were brought together to review the Common Core Learning Standards for the content identified in the 2013-14 NYSA test blueprint. This group developed essence statements to narrow the depth and breadth of the Common Core learning standards. In addition, these essence statements were used to draft extensions, which are analogous to the alternate grade level indicators used in the past. You can see here there are 5 extensions outlined in ELA at each grade level. All students working at a particular grade level are required to be assessed on these 5 extensions. However, individual students may be working at varying levels of complexity within a given extension. You'll see this differentiation noted in the baseline information that's included in this SLO. Academic goals set for students within an SLO are oftentimes reflective of the context in which students are learning. Each SLO should describe the interval of instructional time that's being represented. This teacher has indicated that the SLO will cover the entire school year because this class is built around a September to June framework. In addition, this teacher has provided more contextual descriptions of when student performance will be captured for use in the SLO. This type of detail provides information that may be helpful when determining appropriate targets for each student. SLOs are meant to be specific and measurable. SLOs represent student learning between 2 points in time, therefore requiring a baseline indication of student knowledge and skills and a summative measure of student performance. Remember, this example is built around students who are taking 2 different levels of the NYSA in ELA in 2013-14. The baseline and summative NYSA measures seen here will have direct connection to the learning content outlined within this SLO. This teacher has included the use of other data, such as previous academic performance and individual IEPs, to establish a more comprehensive picture of student ability at the start of the course. The notes included in this section indicate that this teacher is aware of the parameters that the administration of the assessments takes place in. Districts should be sure to clearly communicate the roles and responsibilities of teachers in the administration of both the baseline and summative assessments. For further specifics regarding the NYSA administration, please reference the administration manual found at the link seen here. Districts must determine the best methods for determining the level of students' knowledge of the learning content at the beginning of the instructional period. In order to more accurately set individualized targets for student learning, educators may look at multiple sources of student performance to better understand the knowledge and skills students are entering with. To learn more about using multiple sources of baseline data, please view the Student Learning Objective 103 webinar on using past performance and historical data trends. In this example, IEPs, prior summative assessments, and baseline assessment results are utilized where available and applicable to establish a comprehensive understanding of each student's knowledge and skills at the start of the course. The NYSA requires that baseline data be collected at the start of the school year to ensure that the student is being assessed at an appropriate level of complexity. Verifying evidence is required to support the performance summary. You can see a snapshot of how a district may choose to capture individual student baseline and summative performance. Because the NYSA baseline measure is a requirement, each student will have 3 data points for each of the 5 extensions: the level of complexity, the level of accuracy, and an indication as to whether or not the student required prompting during the task administration. In addition, they'll have other sources of data that the district chooses to utilize. These same data points are captured on the summative administration of the NYSA, allowing educators to look for growth across each extension individually. SLOs require educators to define expectations for student growth over the instructional interval of time. Districts have many possible target setting models to choose from. In this example, the district expects that all students will show growth on the applicable NYSA performance tasks from baseline data point to the final data point. Said more explicitly, students will have a baseline level of performance established in the fall of 2013. Students who receive below a 75% accuracy on the baseline will maintain the same level of task complexity throughout the 13-14 school year. The student will exhibit growth if he or she has an increase in percent accuracy. Students who receive above a 75% accuracy on the baseline will take subsequent tasks at the next higher complexity level. The student will need to take a task early in the 13-14 school year administration that will be the same complexity as the final task that counts towards their final NYSA score, and an increase in accuracy between these will constitute growth. To see additional models for target setting, don't forget to view the critical decisions within SLOs and alternative target setting model webinars found on Engage New York. Districts must define what level of student performance will be reflected in the HIDE scoring chart that accompanies each SLO. The values seen here in the HIDE chart reflect the local level decisions made in this district's approved APPR plan. The percentages reflect the amount of assessment tasks students were able to show growth within. In this example, we were working with a class of 6 students who took the NYSA, which amounts to 30 ELA performance tasks that would be completed, 5 in ELA for each student. If these students show growth, which was previously defined by the district as an increase in accuracy, on at least 24 of the total performance tasks, then 80% or more of the completed tasks would be evidence of growth, which would equate to 30 points or higher on this HIDE chart. Again, it's worth noting here that the values aligned with the point structure found within the HIDE chart are defined at the local level and should be crafted to help define, reflect, and support building and/or district-wide goals. State guidelines indicate that the reasoning behind the selection of standards, the type of assessment used, and the targets set should be explained in the rationale section. This step in the process allows educators to see the individual components of an SLO through a comprehensive lens that should support long-term goals and objectives for student growth. You'll notice in this example that the rationale not only explains how the Common Core standards have been incorporated into the assessment, but references to the instructional program are made as well. Appendix F of the NYSA Administration Manual provides a crosswalk from the Career Development and Occupational Studies standards to each of the NYSA essence statements and extensions, giving educators a rigorous course of action to take while developing students' transitional skills. These crosswalks have connection to career development, integrated learning, and universal foundational skills as links to career readiness for this group of students. Careful consideration should be taken in the selection and/or design of priority content, assessments, and target setting models used across grade and subject areas. SLOs are a framework that can guide the learning of all students in all subjects. Ongoing conversations centered on instruction and student learning are integral components of successful SLO implementation. When working with students who are severely cognitively impaired, a multi-step approach to learning content is required. Identifying the appropriate learning content, level of complexity, and assessment task are all imperative to accurately and fairly capturing student knowledge and skills. We expect SLOs will have significant instructional benefit by encouraging educators to be systemic and strategic in their instructional decisions and lead to improved educator and student performance. It's important to keep in mind that most decisions related to SLO development are made at the local level. When developing SLOs and/or when questions arise, educators should not only reference the approved APPR plan and resources found on Engage New York, but they should engage in conversation with colleagues and district personnel as well. It's our collective responsibility to reach all students, and it's through collaboration and mutual effort that we will do so. NYSA is committed to providing districts and BOCES leaders support as they continue this critical work. A number of resources have been recently released, including an updated student learning objective guidance document for teachers, annotated samples of Year 1 SLOs from the field, and various webinars exploring target setting models. The SLOs posted provide a variety of approaches and are intended as examples only. Districts and BOCES within the context of state regulations and frameworks should determine how specific SLOs will be set after assessing their unique priorities and needs. In addition, we encourage you to utilize the multi-state SLO rubric to ensure your SLOs reflect college and career-ready rigor and drive continuous improvement in instruction. For more on this rubric and to learn more about how to use it, please visit SLO Webinar 102 on Engage New York. Thanks for joining us today for this webinar. We look forward to working together with you this school year.